Yes, they are supposed to be able to get very sunburnt indeed, and they produce a little sunscreen, and you can see probably a bit of pink in front of Peter's eyes, a bit of pink on the back of his body, and that apparently is some kind of natural exudate or secretion that is used to protect the hippo's skin from the sun. It's supposed to smell very bad. I've spent quite a lot of time around hippo. I've never seen a huge amount of that pink stuff, but I have seen bits of it being produced. I've also never seen a hippo that looks particularly harmed by being in the sun, and I've seen lots of young bulls like this, who spend a great deal of time in suboptimal habitats, in pans like this, or walking around like he was doing yesterday. I mean, he walked around in the heat of the midday sun, and he doesn't seem to have been burned. So the books will tell you they suffer dreadfully from sunburn. I'm not entirely convinced. I've told so many people, yes, they suffer dreadfully from sunburn, and you find them walking around in the middle of the day, and they don't seem to suffer too badly. But so probably more sensitive than most, but I don't think that they are dreadfully affected by it, to be honest. I think an extended period in the hot sun without refuge and water would probably be a problem for a hippo. Just look at the cloud building there to the west of us. I unfortunately am pretty sure that that is going to burn away in the face of the welding torch that is the low-felt sun at this time of the year. But it is very beautiful, juxtaposed with the deep blue summer sky behind and the soft light of the morning. Marvelous. Right, well, I think we'll probably pull away from Peter shortly. We'll take a question from Sherry in Ohio first. Sherry, an interesting question is, are oxpeckers the only birds that will consume blood in their diets? No, not at all. I mean, obviously all the raptors will consume blood in their diets. They need the blood. They eat lizards and small mammals and insects and all that sort of thing, and so I suppose that could be considered blood. Are they the only birds that specialize in feeding on blood? They're the only birds that I know of that specialize in feeding on blood, yes, but I wonder if there aren't a few more that eat insects, specifically because of the blood that they eat. Nice question, thank you for that. Right, just before we link across to Jamie, I'm going to send you to Nyala, just across the way there, straight over the top of my head, simply because he's so pretty walking along in this diffused light, with the sky above his head or the clouds above his head. And from there, let us head across to Jamie Patterson and her wee size 5s as they're walking through the bush on a little journey of discovery with Wium. See you just now.
Well, Wium and myself have done a rather rapid walk from where we were to where we are now. We've covered about 250 meters, and the reason that we've done that, and that I'm actually whispering ever so slightly, is that we heard some kudu barking. Now, kudu don't bark for nothing. They either bark for leopards or for lions, and that's pretty much it. Wild dogs, they tend to just run away straight away. So we're just having a look through this thick patch of vegetation to try and see if we can figure out what it was. I've just had a report from one of the guides that Mvula was seen last night after drive around Buffelshoek Dam. He might have made his way somewhere around here. So keep your eyes peeled. We're moving nice and slowly now. We did move very, very quickly. And I think we need to take a moment to acknowledge that the stuff we put the poor cameraman through is absolutely extraordinary. There we go. There's something just snorted at us. He spotted us before I did. Through there. Still not quite sure what we are. Just heard a watching us through the trees. Some zebra hiding off in the drainage line. And we just stumbled across them, which gave them a bit of a fright. Oh, I'm attached to a thorn tree with a radio. Now I know that James has offered to come and help us, and it might be a really good idea for him to enter into this area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to contact him on the Game Drive channel and see if we can get hold of him and bring him in. Just because on foot we can't cover as much ground as we can on the vehicle as quickly as we'd like to. There go the zebra running off. Sorry, zebbies. See if we can get another view while I do this. James for Jamie.
Jamie, go ahead.
There they are, through there. Very aware of us. James, there was some kudu alarm calling around Philemon's Cutline, Shabam Road, and Guinea Fowl as well.
Copy that. I'll come into the area and give you a hand. Where would you like me to start?
Maybe if you can check along Philemon's Cutline, maybe even just work out if you can figure where the kudu were. There's also Nkonzo for Madoda Ingwe on Zoe's Road, going northwest.
Okay, right, thanks.
Oh, there's a little zebra foal. Let's see. Sorry, guys. Just coordinating with James so that we have a way of coordinating the search effort. There's a zebra there. They're aware of us. They've seen us. But they're not quite sure whether we're a threat or not yet. They haven't decided. They're just keeping an eye on us. I love being out on foot. First of all, you can actually really test your skills. You can see how close you can sneak up on an animal. They're grazing now, so they've relaxed almost completely. Still very much aware of us. What you can do, if you get the wind conditions right, which unfortunately we totally haven't because we stumbled on them by surprise. Hello, Zebby. I know you see me. But you can actually get fairly up close to the various herbivores out here with very minimal risk. And there's something so special about viewing them from on foot. It's really, really interesting in that respect. And while we're standing here watching these zebra, we've actually got that foal, which is too sweet. The foal is slightly more nervous of us. And that's always the case, as it was with the giraffe calf as well. That the young ones are slightly more insecure. They're never quite sure where a threat is coming from, which stands them in good stead. Yes, we know. And that snort is in response to us. Now, in situations like these, when we're following alarm calls, I prefer not to disturb the wildlife around us, because at that point you don't know whether they're alarm calling at you or what you were looking for in the first place. I've been listening really carefully while we're standing here, taking the opportunity because it's a nice quiet moment. We're standing watching the zebra, and I've been using this as an opportunity to just listen to the sounds around me and see if maybe we can hear those alarm calls again. Now, kudu's got a really, really deep bark. It's a deep woof sound. It sounds like a dog. It's the deepest, loudest alarm call out here. And the reason behind that is actually because low frequencies can travel further through dense vegetation. And where do kudu live? Dense vegetation. So they're designed that way so that their alarm calls carry through things like drainage lines and through thick areas like the one that we're in at the moment. The difficulty there becomes if you are 250 meters away, you are 250 meters away, and in the time it takes you, all right, Zebby, in the time that it takes you to get to where you are or where the alarm calls were, whatever it is has moved off, and you have to start listening again for other alarm calls. Which is why I've sent James on the vehicle, because he can move faster than we can. He can cover more ground. Hello, Zebby. B. Wilson, you've got a very good point, especially since I nearly stepped on them. I had heard their snort earlier, and you're right, at ground level, zebras are not actually that easy to spot. clearly, as I walked straight into them. I wouldn't have minded sneaking up on them, but that didn't work out as I planned because I walked straight. And that's the magical thing about stripes. You wouldn't think it now. Imagine that this camera's in black and white, like a predator's vision during the day. And imagine trying to distinguish one zebra from another and from a tree. Imagine trying to get a three-dimensional perspective. And it doesn't mean that the predator won't see the zebra. It means that the predator's actually going to have a really tricky time picking one out. So Rayson, who is 15 years old and watching in Arizona, you were wondering about unique colors that stand out in the bush. So when we had guests, we always told them, funnily enough, not to wear black, not to wear white, and not to wear stripes. And the reason behind that is in artificial clothing, the way that stripes are constructed means that they stand out much, much more. Whereas with zebra stripes, the way that they're patterned, it works perfectly. But a white color in the bush, and I'm looking for a good example, but a white color in particular stands out. That's why things like kudu, waterbuck, steenbok all have that white under their tail. So as soon as they lift that up, that's the flash of color that you see first of all, straight away. I'm going to just have a look and see what our zebra are doing. I'm still listening for alarm calls. At the moment, we can't go charging off through the bush because we won't be able to see where we're going. Sorry guys, I'm just listening for, I thought I heard more snorts, but I might have imagined it. Now the other thing that is always a good giveaway, if you find the animal that is alarm calling, really good thing to look at is its body language. Where is it looking? Now at the moment, the zebras are looking at us because they're aware of us, they know that we're here, and we're not necessarily a threat, but we're something to be kept an eye on. But Lucy in Indiana, you've been really observant because you noticed the way that their tails change direction, and they do. Zebra tails, now they're relaxed, so they swish. They're just swishing in their usual zebra kind of way, swatting the flies away from them. But when something does attract their attention, their tails do go still, just like with elephants. Not quite exactly the same, so their tails don't stiffen in the same way elephants do, but they do stop swishing them. So yes, always, any animal, a tail is a really, really good mood indicator. It's a useful way of figuring out exactly what that animal is thinking. Now, the useful thing about being where we are now is that we're much closer to where we heard the original alarm calls. So let's go for a bit of a walk and let's see if we can figure out at least where the kudu barks came from. Let's see if we can find those kudu, because they might tell us where exactly the threat came from. Now, what's interesting is we're moving through this area. A couple of, I'd say about 3 months ago, we had the most amazing elephant sighting here. They were just moving through. The springtime was upon us. We had fresh, what's they called? Baboon's tail leaves coming straight through. And it's actually, this is the first time I've been properly out on foot in this area. And I cannot believe how dry it is. There's absolutely nothing around us for the animals to eat. I actually really feel for them, especially something like a zebra, which is a bulk grazer, so it has to eat pretty much double the amount of something of a ruminant of the same weight. So essentially double the amount of something like a wildebeest. And to find enough food in these areas to sustain them must be something that's incredibly challenging. This is a good vantage point. I'm just going to move a little bit further towards the drainage line, and then we've got a nice open view of the bush ahead of us. Maybe we can figure out exactly where it is that noise was coming from. I know that James is moving through the area, so James is approaching along the road that's in front of us. You can't see it at the moment, it's just on the other side of the drainage line. It's Philemon's cut line, and we're going to approach from this side, and hopefully between the two of us, or between the four of us, including the cameraman, because let us not underestimate what poor Wium is going through in our mad race through the bush. Let's pop over to James and see if he's having any luck on that side.
There is a steenbok. That is definitely not what the kudu were alarm calling at. Steenbok, the least terrifying of all animals out here, probably even less so than a squirrel. But we're in the area around where Jamie said we should come and check for kudu alarm calls. All I can hear at the moment is a sweetly singing robin. And I cannot hear any terrified kudu or guinea fowl. So we'll do a loop of this block and see what else we can see. Now, the steenbok, one antelope that is not going to struggle too much just yet with the drought, as long as it's got enough to eat, because they tend to... that's called a green wood hippo screaming behind us, but it's not alarm calling. They're shouting at another flock of greenwood hoopers. Very noisy. You can hear both flocks going, one closer and one further away from us, and they're just sort of sorting out territorial boundaries. The steenbok is almost water independent if they've got enough food to eat, and you find that they, very happily live in places like the Kalahari and the Namib Desert or semi-desert. Very successfully, and you'll notice as we go through as the drought progresses, the steenbok will lose hardly any condition at all. They look pretty good. Yes, we can see you. That's right. Just shaking her ears, trying to get rid of the flies, which of course are very unpleasant. This is a really nice sighting of a steenbok. We don't see them like this often. They normally run away. And of course, the last time we saw a wild dog kill, which was a few days ago, they killed a steenbok, just like this one. She happened to be pregnant as well, which is a little distressing to watch. So dainty, so silent. Isn't that lovely? Natasha, a very nice comment. You say you love these steenbok, and you know that Karula also loves them. Yes, Karula definitely does love them. I think there are probably more of them than we think there are, because seemingly so many of them get devoured. And they're not that easy to find. I mean, you find impala much more easily. And it's interesting, when the new impala are born, you can, if you're not experienced, or if you just quickly get a glance, you can mistake a baby impala for a steenbok. You wouldn't do that now, despite the fact that the impala are only maybe 14 days old, some of them about a month old. They're much bigger now, much taller than a steenbok. Right, I haven't heard any further alarm calling in this area, and so we're going to just circle the block, go around towards Treehouse Dam. Jamie, as far as I can tell, is just to the left of your screen, and to the left of me, and so she's walking around in the bush there, and we'll carry on and we'll circle around the block, just in case she comes up with anything, and in case whatever she's looking for is crossed out of the block, then we can tow her that too. she's somewhere around here. Not exactly sure, but she's around there somewhere. What I don't want to do is make a mistake and drive over the tracks that she's following and not notice them coming out of the block. That will be very poor of me. Certainly it's one of the things that guides frown the most upon, is driving over fresh tracks that other guides are following. Oh, look at that. I think that's a dark-form Wahlberg's eagle being chased by a very angry fork-tailed drongo. Ooh, that'd be a nice view in there. Tebs, tell me when, if you can get a view. So I'll stop here for now. I think it's a Wahlberg's eagle. It might be. Yes, it is little Wahlbergs. Small eagle. Drongo is just saying, get out of here. We don't want you or your kind in this neighborhood. Go away. And the Wahlbergs are saying, make me. And now there's a stalemate. It's only the Drongos that mob birds like this. Birds of prey. So many don't bother. And it's because of, I mean, an eagle like this is going to really struggle to catch a little bird darting through the branches like that, even right above its head. They're not hawkers, so they don't catch birds in the air, nor do they catch them in trees like this. They really kind of need to land on their prey. And so it's quite safe for, if you're a quick bird like the drongo, to flip about above that voracious aerial predator's head. And it's imitating the Wahlberg's call too. That zip, 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 is the drongo imitating the Wahlberg's call. Thank you, Foxy, on YouTube. You say I have eagle eyes. I don't actually think I do. I think Tebs does. My eyes are, I'd say, fair to middling at best at the spotting of animals. But, and that eagle basically flew out over my head. I'd have had to be pretty blind not to see it. But thank you, Foxy. So a small eagle, one of the most common brown eagles that we get this time of year, and they'll head north into sort of equatorial Africa at the end of March. I think they disappear. I absolutely agree with you. You have to love the fork-tailed drongo, very feisty little bird. Definitely the most feisty. Maximum feistiness. There is a sneaky thing, these. Sneaky, sneaky, sneaky. Look at them, brilliantly hiding there in the bush. 2 elephants. Look like 2 young bulls. Nope, yeah, oh, there's another one at the back there. Jose, you're in Virginia. You know, want to know why it is. There's another elephant coming from the side here. Of course, the first thing you do when you see an elephant on the right is what, Tebs? You look to the left, correct. And as you don't really want to get in the middle of a herd, well, you can these days because the elephants tend to be a lot more relaxed than they used to, but we certainly tried to avoid that when I started guiding way back when the pyramids were built in the year 2000. Jose, sorry, let's get back to your question. You wanted to know about drongos and why they chase those big birds. They chase them because they're predators. They'll chase any predator. They will alarm call to any predator. And it seems to advantage the other birds and not insects so much, lizards and small mammals far more than it advantages the actual drongo, the chasers. There comes an elephant behind us now. It's like another young bull. Might be a little group of young bulls here. The most perfect morning. Lovely diffused light. Elephants. Singing kingfishers. Hippopotami. Look at this chap coming to have a look at us now. He's coming to investigate. He's eating a little acacia seedling. And drive radio. I need to remember to turn it down when we stop. Let's just be very quiet and see what he does. Isn't he great? He's only about 3 feet from the vehicle now. He's giving Tebs the evil eye. Tebs, you want to give him some of your Red Bull? Have you finished it? Wonderful. Look at this. It's incredible. Hello, fella. There's a young bull. He's just having a look at us. He's completely unthreatened. Or unthreatening. If there was a big bull, I would be a lot more worried about that. But he's got a little bit of a fright, of course, because Tebs didn't run away in terror. How's that, Tebs? Cool, eh? Cool. So cool. It's such a wonderful experience to be that close to an elephant. And obviously he's a young bull, like I say, so that's the best kind of elephant experience you can have. If he was a mature bull, I'm not going to start the engine right now, simply because I don't want him to be nervous of us. That's a 6-ton must bull elephant. The feeling is not so much one of excitement and privilege as utter terror. But with a young bull like this, it's just great fun. I'm just going to drive off-road a little bit here and get a look at the other two. And Sandra, I think you're absolutely correct that the elephant wanted to take a selfie with Ted. There's actually quite a whole herd off in here now. See? Stop here so we can look at them there, because I'm kind of hoping that young bull's going to come and say hi again, but let's see. What you can see through there is a lot of dust, and the dust there is just indicative of the dryness of the landscape. Normally in early January you wouldn't find any dust about. It would be very kind of moist on the ground. It'd be a cap almost. Two elephants pretty close by, the one that Tebs is mate over there, and then one right in front of us, just feeding in a ziziphus tree here. And you can see that ziziphus or buffalo thorn this is not the first elephant to have attacked this one. just call this in on the radio, especially so that Jamie doesn't kind of walk in here by mistake. The station's breeding herd of elephants at the junction of Philemon's, Klein, Zoe's animals are static. Alright, let's try and sneak a little bit closer in. Now you hear as the vehicle starts, it goes boom. Now that's obviously unavoidable, and it's that kind of revving sound, the car kicking in, that can be interpreted by elephants as a bit of an aggressive noise. So you want to try and avoid it, especially if an elephant is close by like that bull was there. If the car was like an electric vehicle that could just move away slightly, well, then you may move away a bit more smartly than you would otherwise. So here's another young bull. He's a bit older than that one, and he's just taking a bit of exception to the noise we're making around his breakfast table. We're not going to worry too much about it. Now he's going to show us how strong he is. Look at that. So he's basically saying, I'm feeding, but look how powerful I am. Don't irritate me. That is just amazing strength. That's his nose he's pulling. He's breaking a tree with his nose. You can hear the hornbills going. Woodland kingfishers behind. Black-crowned chagra. Right, now while we're watching these ellies, Jamie's got a close-up of some elephant damage, very relevant to this time of year. Let's head across to her. I'll stay with these elephants.
Now, we're not going to keep you away from James for too long, but we have found the evidence of what happens when trees get pushed down by elephants, as you saw that one doing. And I want to show you something interesting about this incredible tree. So this is a knobthorn that was probably easily 10 meters high, and if I go and I stand in the root system, you can get a rough idea of
Here's our little friend again, Tebs' mate. He's decided he'd like a little bit more time with Tebs, so he came walking out of the tree straight towards us, and he's just basically he's bored. He's a young bull. He's trying to kind of be, trying to find entertainment. And we're the best thing that he's got at the moment. He's tired of just walking around eating all the time. And so he thought he'd come and give us a little visit. I'm not sure if Jamie finished her explanation, but I'll just find out from the final control. We might want to go back to her.
Where were we? We were standing in the root system of this giant knobthorn, and you can get an idea it's actually quite small for a tree of this size. And that's why elephants generally have an easier time of pushing over things like knobthorns than they do of any other tree. It's also why you shouldn't camp out under knobthorns during windy, stormy nights, particularly big ones, as their root systems are very shallow. But that being said, the elephants have also come and nibbled on this particular branch. But you can see, just imagine what this pile of roots and soil weighs. A good couple of 100 kilograms easily. It is one big mass of rock and compacted soil and roots. It's absolutely incredible. Now, there's something else hiding underneath it. And, oh, sorry, Van. Look what's there. A giant land snail, probably one of the biggest ones I think I've seen. I'm going to put my hand in so I can show you a perspective of it. It's roughly the size of my hand. How amazing is that? Now this is still alive. At least I'm fairly certain it is, and I don't want to pick it up and I don't want to do it any damage in a way that might cause it sort of discomfort. So what they do is during the dry and the winter months, and because it's so dry, I think that's what's happening now, even though we are in midsummer, they form a mucousy, sort of a shell almost. It forms a film that then hardens into a really nice, quite flimsy layer, but it keeps the snail from drying out while it estivates. So I think that's what that one's doing. I gave it a little bit of a tap, and it doesn't sound hollow, unlike, if we have a look around here, oh, I have to navigate around the thorns, me and my bright ideas about sandals. So unlike this individual, that is definitely dead. Oh no, it's not. It's actually not. That's what I was talking about the film. This is a sleeping land snail. This layer here, this very delicate membrane, that's hiding the snail in there. You can see there's a little bit of moisture still in the one corner. The snail isn't dead. I thought it was just filled with dirt. It is smelly though. I think it is the snail. It's got a distinctly pungent smell to it. And that's why the shell hasn't started to go that bleached white color that land snails go. Well, I think we might have just done this little guy a service, because he was upside down and very vulnerable, and I'm going to put him back where he was, the right way up, so that he doesn't dehydrate at all. Let's head back to James and those ellies. We'll keep looking for wonderful things to show you.
Right, we're back again. We're still with the same elephant that was feeding on his Sisyphus breakfast, and he's totally relaxed with us, and then behind him is Tebs' mate, also eating on a Sisyphus. And he decided that he wasn't going to spend too much time sitting on our bull bar, and he's gone round to share the Sisyphus tree. Now the only, of course, the one suffering from this current feeding bout is the Sisyphus tree itself, which is being, it's been bent every way from Sunday. And astoundingly, it will probably survive this attention. Most of the trees out here will survive being pushed over, broken, snapped, debarked, and all sorts of other kind of attentions from elephants. Sisyphus was very nutritious, and certainly, even human beings can eat the leaves. So if I was stuck out here, I couldn't hunt, and I was desperate for some form of nutrition. Sisyphus would be probably the best thing to eat out here, if you couldn't find fruits and roots and things. So the situation here is a social situation where the elephant herd, led by a matriarch, will feed off in one area, and they're off to the behind, basically, where your picture is, and they're feeding very quietly through the woodland. And then on the periphery of the herd, you have these young bulls. And as I said yesterday, they're sort of like, I'm sure some of you can imagine this sort of situation where, as human beings, you go off to the movies or to perhaps to a restaurant as a family. And once you are sort of a 13 or 14-year-old boy, the thought of being around your family with the younger kids and your parents at the movies or at a restaurant somewhere where you might be seen by others is just deeply embarrassing, and you'd rather kind of sit away from your family and be on your own and chat with your own mates and sort of assert a little bit of independence. And that's what these bulls are doing. But much like teenage boys, they do like to know where their families are, despite the fact that they wouldn't tell you that. So that just for that little bit of security, they're not quite ready to be independent on their own yet, and so they'll keep in visual and audio and probably olfactory contact with the rest of the herd, despite the fact that they're a bit cool for school at the moment and they're lurking on the periphery. And that's what these bulls are doing. They're just starting to assert their independence. This one in front of us, I would say, is probably 15 or so years old, and he's probably got another 2 years in the herd before he has to, well, his testosterone levels will start to get the better of him. He'll become a bit of a bully, and his mother or the matriarch of the herd will toss him out, and he will then go and have to forge his way on his own as one of the great elephant bulls of the Kruger National Park. Cindy in Tennessee, you've heard of something called displacement behavior, and you want to know if this elephant is exhibiting it? No, this elephant isn't eating. Let's watch him now. I'll see if I can find evidence of displacement behavior. Hello, fella. No, he's totally relaxed. He couldn't care less about us. Displacement behavior, Cindy, is probably best described by, again, trying to liken it to human behavior in awkward social situations. So let's pretend that you go to a party and in the room, when you get there, none of your friends are there and you're on your own, and you've got to kind of meet people and say hello, and perhaps you're a bit shy. And what you do when you meet people is you start to fiddle with your hands because you're feeling slightly socially awkward. And so you fiddle with your hands, or you've got a lighter in your pocket, or you've got a drink, you'll fiddle with an empty glass, pretend to drink from it. Just to do something with your hands. You might put your hands in your pockets, you might fiddle with your tie, or the hem of your skirt, or whatever it is, and look in your handbag. That's displacement behavior. You're basically saying, I'm feeling slightly socially awkward, so I'm just going to fiddle a bit. That is the same with elephants. If they are feeling awkward with your presence, with our presence specifically, they will do things like stand on one leg, or not stand on one leg, they'll lift one leg and rub it against the other leg. They might scratch their ears. They might pretend to feed. They put something in their mouths and then they drop it down on the ground, all the while keeping an eye on you. That would be described as displacement behavior. And it's one sort of level. It's basically saying, I'm feeling a bit awkward, I'm not that uncomfortable, but I'm just checking you out, I don't really know what's going on. It's one step before an elephant will then either stop displacement behavior and carry on doing what it's doing, or it will decide that it doesn't like you, and it will swish its head, stick its ears out and say, you're making me uncomfortable. I've decided that we're moving from displacement to, you're making me uncomfortable, please go away. So I hope that's kind of an explanation for you, Cindy, as to what displacement behavior is. Sherry, I know I probably made mention quite a lot of the hip bones on animals because it's quite a good way of checking out their condition. The hip bones are sticking out, and you say you can see the hip bone on this elephant. You can. He actually looks, for the elephants, compared with many of the elephants that I've seen in the last little while, I think he looks pretty good. I think his condition is fine. So I wouldn't worry too much about him. Just listening to the radio quickly.
All right, copy, Abel. Abel, where did you leave Madonna last night? It was Dan. I mean, off board, so I left him there. So, but here, Jamie, I'm sure he's from Congo, those roads there.
They had a male leopard coming onto Vuatela or Juma yesterday evening after we'd closed down. Jamie, of course, had the tracks earlier. Very different area from where he came onto the reserve yesterday, so maybe a different male. It might be worth just going to have a look around there a little bit later. But I certainly haven't heard any further alarm calls from any animals. We're now sitting probably 10 meters, 30 feet from this elephant, and he's just completely unreacted. Now, Brazils, you want to know if the game reserve plants trees. Brazils, no. The game reserve most certainly does not plant trees. They may take some trees out from time to time, but they certainly don't plant them. This is a wild area. I suppose, I mean, it is a wild area. We do pump water every so often and certainly build dams for animals. But tree planting is not necessary. The birds and the elephants do that for us, and there's no need to do it in an enormous area like this. 8 million acres. Planting trees you'd have to plant a huge number of trees in order to have any effect. Now, if you had a small reserve that was self-contained with a fence around it, you might want to plant a few different kinds of trees. If it had been, perhaps it was agricultural land before and had been denuded of trees, then you might want to plant some trees. But Brazil's not in this area, no. You can grow these trees from seeds, a lot of them, but we don't plant any of them here. Yeah, you want to know about skittish elephants in Mozambique, and do we get any of them here? I'm not really sure what you mean. So, the Greater Kruger National Park, or the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park, consists of the Kruger, the Limpopo National Park in Mozambique, and the Gonarazu National Park and Sengwe corridors in Zimbabwe. And those areas are contiguous wildlife areas. Now, I suppose, perhaps if there were elephants in the Mozambique section that were not familiar with vehicles, it's a pretty wild area in there, and they might be a lot less familiar and a lot less confiding than this chap who's basically ignoring us completely. Then you might, we do get the odd elephant that comes in here that is a little bit more nervous of vehicles than others. I'm not sure that's down to where they come from so much as down to emotional state at the time. But certainly elephants could come all the way from Mozambique into here. Elephants that occur in some of the Mozambican national parks that are distinct from the Greater Kruger or the Greater Limpopo National Park would be highly unlikely to come in here. So Mia, if you can give me a little bit more detail about which part of Mozambique you mean, I might be able to give you a slightly more coherent answer. Hello, fellow. He is so disinterested in us. It's wonderful. He's now, he passed about 45 feet from us. Not even that. About 5 meters. About 20 feet from us. Totally disinterested, and it's wonderful. It means that he's completely comfortable. He's watching us a little bit, but nothing like his mate, Tebs' mate behind there did. And Jose, I mean, you can see obviously the elephants do damage the trees here. That's completely normal. And you want to know if they cause deforestation? I certainly wouldn't describe it as deforestation. Yes, in a big drought, if there's nothing to eat, elephants can change the structure of the vegetation completely, and they will denude an area of vegetation if it isn't being replaced. In terms of this area, it would have to have a very, very severe drought before the elephants actually created what we called, I suppose, deforestation. But that's not to say that they don't completely change the structure of the vegetation. So you can see the combretum trees that they're eating. And while they very seldom kill the trees, or not very seldom, but they don't kill them often, you can see how they modify the shape and structure of the vegetation around here. And the absence of elephants here, certainly, even if the bush wasn't thicker than it is now, the trees would be very different. The shape would be totally different. They'd grow much more in a much more upright fashion. The trunks would be much thicker. Okay, so Mia, you've responded and you say the elephants that were traumatized by the civil war in Mozambique, which ended pretty much 20 years ago now. So, Mia, I think you'll find, much like with the elephants that were culled, for a long time they culled them in Kruger up until 1996. And even when I started guiding in the year 2000, they were you wouldn't get this close to elephants without thinking twice about it, because they didn't stand like this for us. They used to get very upset, and certainly often you'd go into an elephant sighting in reverse because they were quite nerve-wracking. Now he's just saying, I'm listening to you carefully, this elephant. He's perhaps a bit bored of his feeding. So, Mia, I think that you'll find that most of those elephants that were traumatized during the war, and there were lots, you're absolutely right, would be pretty okay now. I think those awful memories that they do carry would largely have dissipated. I'm sure you'll get the odd elephant that still bears the emotional scars of the war, and most of them probably in different parts of Mozambique from the ones that are connected to the Kruger National Park. This is wonderful sighting. All right, I think we're going to head on from here. We're going to just check around for some more leopard tracks. Jamie's got a bone to show you, so let's head across to her while we get out of here, and we'll gently make our way down to the south and then around.
And have a look at what we found in the bush. We won't take you away from those ellies for too long. But apropos what we were saying yesterday with that huge buffalo bone, look how cool this is. We've got a broken patch here, so the center is broken open, and you can see the groove where the bone marrow was. And some enterprising hyena has broken it open, which they didn't bother with or weren't able to do with that buffalo bone we found. And they've got into the marrow inside. And if they can do that, there is an incredible amount of nutrition to be had. You can see where it was broken and actually gnawed on at the ends. And you guys all know me. There's nothing I love more than finding something like this in the bush, because it tells you a story. And you can paint a picture as to what happened. I'm not sure which bone it is. Right, the bone marrow bones are the long, thick bones, so either the humerus or the femur, generally in adult animals. So it's probably something like a kudu, just judging by the size, probably maybe about that long, and the thickness. So not something like a buffalo, which makes it easier for things like hyenas to break open and get into the center and the really good stuff. And again, that's also a giveaway. This joint around here, nice and smooth, where the other bones would have fitted onto it. And it's amazing, having looked at leg bones plenty of times before, the number of little bones and pieces of cartilage that will fit into a gap like this to create the joint mechanism. We don't stop enough and marvel at the way that everything is designed or fits together and the way that it works. It's actually a mind-blowing process. It's incredible. You can even see the network of cracks within the bone. So we're on our way towards Treehouse. We've got to where the alarm calls were. There's fresh kudu tracks here. So this animal was somewhere in this vicinity. Still no sign of the tracks of what actually scared the kudu, but we're going to go down and check Treehouse Dam. We know there's a little bit of water there, and maybe we'll have more luck around there In the meantime, we're going to send you back across as I release my bone to the wild. Send you back across to James and his elephants. We'll catch up with you later.
All right, everybody, this is a proper bull. This is a 6-ton elephant. This is what those youngsters are going to look like one day. And he's just wandering around here looking a bit frustrated. And if you look underneath, between his back legs, he's streaming urine. And he's definitely in must. He's in his heightened time of testosterone. He's ready to mate. He'll be looking for an estrus female who will allow him to mate with her. He is massive compared with the other two, and I'm not going to get the same impression that we are sitting here with him, but he is substantially bigger than those other ones. We're not far from them. He's within sight of the other two. I'm just going to reverse back a little bit so that we can see him coming. He turned to come towards us when we came past him, and I think that he's in that kind of frustrated stage where I think just stick on him because he move very slowly back towards him. He's in that frustrated stage of must where he can be a little bit unpredictable. You will read in books that elephants are aggressive when they're in must. I hate the term aggressive to describe any of the animals out here. He's potentially more frustrated in a stage of must, so we will be relatively careful around him. Like I say, I think if we're careful enough, he'll be fine. I really do dislike the term aggressive. Well, I mean, except for people, we can be quite aggressive. Now, he's watching us. We just want to make sure that if he does decide that he doesn't like us very much, that we can move off in an orderly fashion, but frontwards. Look at him, isn't he amazing? Look at that kind of slow motion movement he's got. And we had a comment yesterday that elephants walk the same as giraffe and hyena, going left foot, and then right foot, right foot. That clearly is disproved now. Oh no, who is it? That's right. I can't believe that I've never noticed that before. That. Well done. I forget exactly which viewer it was. And pointed it out. I disputed it. I said I didn't think that was correct. And I've been proven wrong. And when I was a younger man, of course, my ego was less in check. That would have made me very upset. I'm actually very grateful now. Thank you. That is wonderful. Fascinating. And Kevin Geyer, as you say, this dude is not to be messed with. Absolutely. But he's being very chilled. Often they're not when they're in must. Often they can be a little upset. This dude is very happy. Well, he certainly seems to be more than comfortable with our presence, which is great. I'm just going to move gently along with him like this. We're on the road. He's just off the road. He may turn towards us at some stage and say, "Go away." At the moment, he seems to be very happy. Because the rest of the herd is behind us. Get a view of the rest of the herd. There's one of the young bulls we were looking at earlier. I'm just going to be very interested to see how it reacts to this very large bull approaching it. So we'll stop here. Liz, while we're watching to see what is going to unfold here, you want to know why we don't see elephant skulls or bones in the bush. the same reason we don't see that many other bones in the bush, Liz. They eventually disintegrate. The hyenas drag them off and eat them. They'll be dragged into burrows. And the other reason, of course, is that elephants often die close to the rivers where the food is softer. And they die of old age. They're one of the few animals out here that do die of old age quite often. And they die when their teeth wear out, and so they struggle to eat the hard foods that are away from the rivers, and so they'll end up eating softer stuff on the rivers. And when they die, their bones kind of disappear into the mud around where they die. But you'll also find that their bones get dragged off by hyenas, etc. I must say, for a musk bull, this guy is really very chilled out indeed. For now. I was hoping that we'd see him with the other one, but I think that's going to take a while. He's just tracking the herd rather than being amongst them. Alrighty, let's carry on, Tebs. Let's go find a cat. What do you think? Yeah. Right, so we're now near the southern boundary. Jamie's still in here as far as I know, and we'll just try and see if we can't find the track she was looking at. Safari D, lovely question about visiting here. And these questions are wonderful because, you know, if you live in a place, you get the impression that people have the same impression of where you live as you do. But obviously that isn't the case. And Safari Dean, you want to know, if you come here as a visitor at night, can you wander around or you can find to your room? Safari Dean, wandering around at night, it would certainly not be recommended. Especially without the aid of a very powerful flashlight or torch. It depends where you are, of course, but in this particular area, you know, there are no fences around our camps, and so, no, we don't wander around at night, but we're certainly not confined to our rooms. We're confined to the camp, but we sit around a campfire, or we sit around a table and chat. You don't have to go inside. Animals are generally put off by the sounds and smells of a human camp. But if you then walk away from the camp into the bush, you obviously present yourself as a very vulnerable figure at night. You can't see properly. An animal can like a predator will very quickly see if you're able to see them or not. I mean, you walk straight past them 3 or 4 times, they're going to realize that you're night blind, which for all intents and purposes we as human beings are. They feel much more comfortable at night. You also could blunder into a hippo that is perhaps grazing, or an elephant that's grazing. I mean, you're maybe dozing, you wouldn't even know they were there. So at night we don't wander around at all, but in the camp it's perfectly safe to move about the place. If you go to one of these exclusive lodges or any lodge around here, often there aren't fences around the camp. Sometimes there are. If there are fences, then you know there'll be areas that you can walk about, but often not. And so places where I've always worked, there haven't been fences around the camp. So you just have to make sure that when you go to and from the rooms, you have a security guard with a big flashlight there, just so that you can see what's going on. Nice question. Thank you, Safari Dean. And anybody else, I mean, if you're planning on traveling, thinking about traveling to Africa, any concerns or fears or worries or wonders about what it might be like, please send through those questions. Without tourists in this area, we wouldn't be able to maintain the magnificent landscape that this is. And so please keep us posted if you have any questions on traveling to Africa or South Africa specifically. We're just keeping an eye out for some tracks, and we'll just get past this one. Hello. Good morning. How are you doing? Good, fine, thank you. Hello, everybody. We're going to carry on, see what we can see. Any luck down there? Okay. Okay, cool. So, interesting updates there. Shadow is on a kill in Hoffman's here. It's a 9-year-old female leopard. Obviously, we can't go and see her because she's not because of her, because of this not part of our traversing area. And then Quarantine is on a kill of cheetah plains. That's quite nice. We had a question about him yesterday. He is at cheetah plains there. He's on a kill, and the wild dogs are on Simbambili. So no cats around our traversing area, other than perhaps the male leopard that Jamie found the tracks of. So we'll keep searching for that. All right, let's head across to Jamie for an update on what she's doing, and I will keep searching for tracks around here. See you shortly.
Well, we found the gentleman responsible for making the alarm calls, well, we think the gentleman responsible for making the alarm calls earlier. We've just arrived at Treehouse Dam. He's very, very skittish, a big male kudu, and he ran off into the thick, dense thicket in front of me. And I'd like to say that I'm really delicately and dignified in my pose on top of this termite mound, but actually, in reality, there's a very good chance you might watch me go tumbling down. I'm not entirely sure I'm standing on ground at the moment. I think I might be standing on just a tuft of grass. So when the roots give way, you'll be the first to know as I sort of disappear out of view and vanish down the other side, which would not be the first time I've fallen off a termite mound, but it would be the first time I've fallen off a termite mound live on camera. Just like I nearly pulled my shorts down earlier when they were caught on the thorn tree. So there's always several indignities involved in walking in the bush, and you see people do some very interesting things, including fall into holes. Now this kind of termite mound that we're standing on, we actually checked out really carefully first before we came and stood on it. There's a couple of reasons behind that in terms of safety in the bush. One, you never know who's on the other side. You guys know all about Karula and Shadow actually, and how much they enjoy draping themselves across a termite mound, and that's one of their favorite positions to sit in. You never know if they're sleeping on the other side, and that's something you really don't want to do, is surprise them. Rather give an animal ample warning of your approach than come around the corner and surprise them. It does happen occasionally, and then it's up to you how you handle it. But for the most part, something to be avoided. The other reason is that warthogs really like to disappear into tunnels. In this particular case, there aren't any big warthog burrows, but we didn't know that when we approached from the one side. So it's always important to check, because I promise you, there is nothing like the heart attack involved in terms of having a warthog explode out of a burrow. They back into their burrows and they come out face first, and they come out at a speed that's roughly equivalent to the speed of light, or maybe something that NASA might recreate with a rocket ship. They really come out very, very fast, and they come out squealing, they come out with dust and an explosion of noise, and they come out with very sharp tusks. So important to remember, never, ever, ever, when you're walking in the bush, walk in front of a hole. It's just one of those basic safety facts. Now, what I'm trying to figure out next is my descent, because short of knocking Wium over backwards, which I'd prefer not to do, I'm not entirely sure I can get down. But you can watch me as I descend, and let's see if I go head over heels. And maybe we can start making our way across to Treehouse Dam. There you go. So graceful. I'm sure you're all disappointed that I didn't fall down. I'm sure Wium's very disappointed that I didn't fall down. He's nodding. Well, let's head back across to James for now. I'm not too far from Treehouse Dam, and you can come back when I do reach it, and we can have a look around there.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I hope you are too. What was that update of male leopard yesterday towards Bushwalk Dam? Just trying to find out about male leopard coming towards Bushwalk Dam yesterday. We got it was in Karula.
Jumping the pipeline, made his way west towards Bushwalk Dam.
Okay, Jamie's on on foot, yeah, so Game Drive radio isn't on most of the time. But I tell you what she's doing. She was following up male leopard tracks around Treehouse Dam, and she had some others going northwest from that position. So, I doubt they're the same ones, but they could be.
Okay, so last time we closed down south, so I had a feeling might have been to Ghana again. But did you check the area this morning?
I haven't, Craig. I'll go into that area now. Thanks very much for that. Jamie's just there. Okay, copy, thanks. Right, we're going to go and follow up. We're going to just do a turn around Bushwalk Dam, I think, see what's going on there. The first thing I want to do, though, Jamie's just over there, we spotted them, is give Wium his hat because he's going to get very burnt. So let's go past there, say hello to them, and we'll see if Wium notes his hat. I also want to find out why Jamie couldn't get down a termite pond. I find that astonishing. They're not doing a very good job of hiding. Hello. How are you?
Hey. Nice combination.
Yes, I thought I'd just bring it out.
Hello, everybody.
Wium doesn't like the sun too much, so we thought we'd give it to him.
That's what my hat was.
Yes. Here's your hat. Do you want it? Do you want it now? Or would you like me to take it back with me?
You can take this one.
Okay. He's very particular about his hat, is our Wium.
Here we go.
Craig had male leopard tracks coming towards Bushwalk Dam yesterday.
Abel, did you not hear?
That's Abel, yeah.
Yeah. Abel had Mvula there last night after game drive.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And you had tracks here?
I had tracks on Zoe's
Okay.
going towards power lines, yeah.
Okay.
We
Right.
found our kudu.
Did you?
Yes, we found our
You didn't
kudu
find what they were
calling
shouting
kudu.
at, though?
No,
No.
just one giant hyena track,
Oh.
which maybe at this time of year, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe they were alarming at Wium's hat.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly.
And that's why the new hat is probably a better idea.
Yes, I think the new hat is a step up.
And just a quick one, everybody. It's quite important for you to note, of course, as you know, we make mention of the fact that the cameramen have to carry a great deal when they're on walk. Now you can see how trussed up
Yeah.
Wium is.
Poor Wium, he did a very quick march through the bush
Yes.
after the alarm calls.
But superbly equipped he is in a pair of good boots.
Godzilla.
Yeah, Godzilla boots, a pair of cargo pants for his bits and pieces, possibly some, he does like a picnic. Wium's has probably got a lot of food. Most of those, he's got a torch in case he gets stuck out here at night. Possibly a leather man in case he needs to construct a shelter for him and Jamie. And a rain cover even. That's very hopeful, Wium.
Yes, well,
That's
we never know.
extremely optimistic. Wium is obviously an optimist. Yes, we've seen clouds many times in the last months. Very few of them produced anything in the way of rain. Okay,
All right, well,
on we go.
We will.
All right, we'll go past those tracks and then possibly towards Bushwalk Dam, just as we turn around.
Back.
Thank
Yes.
you. As we were. What a wonderful sighting of Wium Dorenbracht there. Aaron in New Zealand. You want to know, we often get animals wandering through our camp. Our particular camp, no, because it's sort of it's in a sort of U-shaped. We set around a courtyard with a split pole fence that separates us from the ablution blocks of the next staff camp. So the animals coming in there would probably, they'd feel nervous about it. We do get hyenas coming in regularly, and one raided a dustbin yesterday evening, which is very irksome. It isn't, of course, our fault entirely because we didn't put it inside the kitchen, which we should have. And thank you to, I think it was Kirsten who picked it all up this morning. Well done, Kirsten. Good job. And possibly Jerry as well. I think there was a great deal of shouting. I think Jerry must have been involved in that as well. Whoops. Very important question from James in Calgary here. James, you say you're coming out here soon and you're coming to Djuma and you have a few worries about what you may or may not find. Principally, you're worried about pee breaks. Will you be allowed to go on a pee break? Yes, anytime you like. Whoever your guide is will unquestionably will probably term it a comfort stop. But yes, a pee break, perfectly allowable any stage as long as you don't happen to be in a sighting at the time. So yes, you will be allowed to relieve yourself at will. Secondly, you're worried about the quality of coffee. Now, this is a great worry that I have shared with you over many years. Quality of coffee in the area has increased exponentially from when I began. We were forced to drink instant nonsense back then, and some people, like Wium, for example, prefer instant coffee. They, of course, need to be evaluated by professional psychiatrists. In fact, probably a whole herd of professional psychiatrists. But the rest of us drink very good coffee out here, so don't worry about that, James. You will have good coffee. Tara and I were certainly the two coffee connoisseurs. Kirsten, on her arrival here, has continued to make very good coffee in the mornings, so fear not, the coffee will be good. This is a good one from Shell in Detroit. If you want to come out here and you want to meet the SafariLIVE crew, well, I mean, if you'd like to, you can stay at Djuma itself, Vuyatela, or at Galago. I think, if I'm not mistaken, though, with those two camps, you've got to book the whole camp out. So if you're traveling with a decent-sized group, I think they're the best value beds in the Sabi Sands. Really very nice indeed. And so that's quite a nice option, Vuyatela or Galago camp. Galago, I think, takes 10 people, 8 to 10, maybe 8 people, 8 to 10, and Vuyatela, I think, is 12, if I'm not mistaken. But I think you do need to book the whole camp out. So if you're traveling with a group, brilliant stuff. Otherwise, Arathusa is a good option. And that's the other reserve that we traverse, and they're off to the west of us. And in terms of meeting the SafariLIVE crew, yeah, that's absolutely possible. Come out and meet us, and you can come and look at what goes on in the final control. And yeah, it'll be good to see you. There are lots of other lodges quite close by, in Kuro and Cheetah Plains and Chitwa, and you're welcome to kind of ask them, if you do stay there, whether you can come and see us or not. We have nothing to do with that. Right, let's go across to Jamie. You've seen her recently. See her again. We're going to see if we can't pick up on these leopard tracks. See you shortly.
Well, lucky for the rest of the animals on Djuma that the elephants have been around, and they've created this incredible pit at Treehouse Dam. And for those of you who were watching that wild dog sighting, that was where the wild dog was hiding when I drove past, and that was why it came as such a big surprise for both me and him when he popped out of this hole all of a sudden, and I had no idea. There was no way I could have seen him from where I was driving. They've created such a perfect groove along here. And thank goodness as well that we've had a couple of really good rainy seasons. We were just chatting about it earlier. And the fact that although the surface water is completely lacking, there's not much here, there's still patches of underground water like this one that the elephants can dig through and manage to get some kind of moisture out of the soil. And this thick clay is perfect for holding water. If this soil was not the consistency that it is, we wouldn't have the soil in this kind of area. It all comes down to the type of soils and the topography of the area in determining whether or not there's any underground water for the animals to find around here. And this is why we're seeing so many animals around this particular area, including, if we can try and see it, somebody who came down to drink at the edge of the water. And I think, or we've started to wonder whether or not it was this animal that was responsible for that kudu alarm calling. Now I'm walking, let's try and put myself away from directly in the sun. You can have a look at this track. I'm not sure how clearly you can see it anymore, but it's fairly recent because the patch of water over there is still wet from where it was drinking. And we think, having discussed it earlier, that this hyena came down to drink and then dribbled a little bit of water on the side there, or possibly splashed. We know how hyenas love water, so it might have moved through the puddle and then came up this way. And at this time of year, the reason we suspected maybe that hyena was causing the kudu to alarm call is that hyenas are going to start hunting. And not start hunting, they've always been able to hunt, but they might be scavenging slightly less, especially because there have been less lions on Djuma recently. And a couple of really large hyenas, and this was a really large hyena. I mean, her feet were, this is her back foot, which is quite a lot smaller, but her front foot is almost the size of my hand. That indistinct circle, I promise you, is the track of the front foot of the hyena. So a big girl, probably a female, just judging by the size. And this is the last sort of remaining water supply, and maybe that's what sparked that kudu alarm calling. And just looking at the rest of Treehouse Dam, there really is not much else in the way of surface water. And it's an ankle trap at this point, just pitted with tracks from buffalo walking through and all the other animals like that. And if we look over here, just to give you an idea of how deeply these animals sink into the mud, you can actually see the two track of a hoof that's gone in there. That is incredibly deep. And that would have been when the buffalo were wallowing in the mud earlier this year, when there was still mud to wallow in. And this stuff is really thick, very glutinous in a way. Becomes like a thick, stagnant clay. A little bit of greenery still around and about, something for the animals to snack on, and at least with the mud they can get some of the salts that might be necessary for them. But it's been such an interesting trip on foot. It's the first time I've been properly on foot in this area. And James Richards wants me to see if I can find a feather. I'll keep my eyes peeled. I always look out for feathers because all of the birds out here come with the most fascinating, I agree with you, the most fascinating combination of colors. Sorry, I thought I heard that kudu again. I think I'm imagining it though. But I'll keep an eye out for feathers. A dam might be a good place to look for the birds that came down and then had a groom around it. And some of the most fascinating James, I guess this isn't what you were talking about. Maybe something a little bit more exciting. Found a feather though. I'll try and find you one that is slightly more dramatic than a piece of downy fluff. But you know, interesting in its own way, in keeping the bird warm. And of course, I'm always on the lookout for those lilac-breasted roller feathers so that I can give some to James and we can finally let this war between us cease about the fact that I stole his lilac-breasted roller feather, which was a blatant lie. But yes, there's all kinds of extraordinary feathers to find out here. The most exciting usually is to find one of the big raptor feathers, something from a bird of prey or even an owl. And owls, of course, are even more interesting because they've got those fringed tips where the feathers slit through. And that just breaks up the passage of air over the wing and makes them a lot quieter. You'll notice that I walked fairly slowly over this dam wall. Now I know that we've mentioned it's very dry, but it's not quite dry enough for the animal that Tammy's asking after. So you were wondering if we get meerkats out here. We don't. We get the relatives of meerkats, so we get mainly four different species of mongoose. You get the dwarf, the banded, the slender, and then the white-tailed. And if you're really, really lucky, not really at this time of year though, you might get a water mongoose. But meerkats tend to be, although they fill the same ecological niche, they tend to be more in the sort of arid areas of this place. Oh, there we go. Now this is interesting. Oh, it's a terrapin. That's what it is. A terrapin that didn't make it. And it could well have been something like a bird of prey. Got it while it was on its way from the dam. Poor thing was probably looking for some more water and didn't manage to find any, but you can see the scales in here. And that comes from the bottom of the shell that's been crushed. And then you've got the central sternum moving down the front. You'll notice I'm not touching it. Here we go, look at that. That is interesting. So that was the top side. And here we've got the bottom edge with those extended flipper-like forelimbs. Oh no, hold on, that doesn't make sense. This does not make sense. What are we looking at? Are we not looking at a barbel of some kind? Yeah, it's a catfish. Jeepers, that was a big catfish. Holy moly. I thought terrapin because of its size, but actually if I look at it now, I'm just going to sit down so I'm more comfortable, you can see where the eyes are. That is fascinating. This is the head of the catfish. So this catfish was probably about that big. What would that be? About 1/2 meter. So 1.5 feet long. That is really cool. What an epic find. And those, what I originally thought were scales on the shell of the terrapin, are actually scales of the fish. Wow. That's fascinating. You can even see, if I turn it around, let me turn it for you ever so slightly. Yeah, you can see the front part. You can even see the sort of degraded parts of the famous barbel antenna, like extensions on their noses. Epic. What a fascinating find. Which means this bit here, which makes a lot more sense, is all of the gill systems. But look at these. I don't even know what purpose those serve, except as part of the gill structure. That is really interesting. So probably sitting where we are, and I'm just having a look up at what's above us, sitting underneath the marula tree, and probably what happened at some point was a fish eagle came by, a fish eagle or maybe one of the marabou storks. We saw how they were making the most of this, of the dry period, and probably it came round and grabbed one and fed on it on top of this tree. Nice safe spot, nice protected spot where it can see, and then dropped the head of the catfish down. Probably the least consumable part of it. Well, that was an interesting find. Now, it's something that just goes to show why walking is so interesting, because you never know what you're going to find. We've probably driven past this catfish head countless times. Between the 4 presenters who are driving regularly, we've all driven past here so many times since that catfish was eaten, and it's only now that we're on foot that we're starting to spot it. And if you look on the Djuma Dam camera at some point soon, there's a juvenile fish eagle that's sitting on the dam camera, and that is an example of what might have eaten that catfish. Awesome stuff, really interesting. Let's see what other wonderful things we can find out and about on foot. And it's interesting to just have a look. It's a little bit greener here, ever so slightly greener, and that's because of the underwater, or the water table that I was talking about, with the water underneath it. And that's what's keeping these areas slightly greener, allowing for a little bit more in the way of vegetation around the dam sides and the dam areas. Cool. Well, I'm going to continue searching for more wonderful and mystical things to show you out on foot. In the meantime, let's have a look at what Mr. Hendry's up to.
Right, we are back. We are looking for the leopard tracks. I have failed to find one so far, but we're in and around the area where they were heading. I've decided not to go to Bushwalk Dam because although they had a male leopard there, Craig thought Karula was further south, perhaps south of Torchwood, so I'm not going to go there. He thought maybe also that the leopard they thought they had last night could have been Tingana, and therefore very likely that the tracks that Jamie had this morning are from him doing a territorial patrol this way. So we're going to stay around this particular area and see if we can't find some tracks of a leopard around here. We're now on the main Vuyatela access. I'm just going to not make too much eye contact. I'm going to be looking at the road, so please excuse me. BJ, I'm going to stop my car here because this is a subject that needs to be comprehensively discussed and quickly put to bed. BJ, you say your husband and you were considering coming out here, but you watched some kind of documentary on Nat Geo where they talked about some sort of uprising where tourists were being kidnapped and held for ransom, perhaps. BJ, I've never heard of that happening in Kenya or Tanzania or Botswana or Zambia or Zimbabwe or Namibia or South Africa, especially not in South Africa. Certainly it might happen in places like Nigeria or in North Africa, where there is a lot of I suppose there's a lot more upheaval. Remember, Africa is a massive, massive, massive place. You can stick the continental US into Africa and not fill half the continent. It's a massive continent. Nothing like that is going on in South Africa or the major sort of safari destinations of the continent: South Africa, Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Mozambique, Zambia, Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda. All places that you can go to perfectly safely. You'll be just as safe here as you would be at home. So please try and dissuade your husband from fears of kidnapping. I promise you now, you are just as likely to be kidnapped at home as you are in the places that I've just mentioned. So fear not, pop out here, come and see some of the wonders that we have to offer you in Africa. Yes, there are some political upheavals around the continent in some of those places where I've mentioned. Very few were in the places I've mentioned, and especially, yes, lots of upheaval around West Africa, Central Africa, North Africa. They are so far removed from here. It's like people who stopped traveling to South Africa because of the Ebola outbreak. There was more Ebola in the United States than there was in South Africa. We're 6,000 miles from where the Ebola outbreak took place. So, we're a massive, massive continent. So please, great question, BJ. Thank you for it. And anybody else who shares fears like that about coming on safari, fire them through. We'll explain all of that stuff to you, because it can be a little intimidating coming from the first world to what's perceived as kind of the backwater third world. We'll dissuade you of any fears that you have, because I promise you, you'll have the most wonderful, wonderful time out here. Nice question. Thank you for that, BJ. Very nice question. What are the 5 most important things you should bring on safari? Right, number one on your list of things. I'm not going to look at you, Velma. I'm just going to check the road for tracks. Number one on your list must be a pair of binoculars. You want a pair much better than this one. This is a rubbish pair of binoculars, but you will be able to find a fairly inexpensive one, I'm sure, especially if you're in the States or the UK, where your currency holds some value. You'll be able to get a decent pair of binoculars there. It just makes a huge difference to what you see. There is the male leopard. Then number two would be a jersey, believe it or not. So many people come to Africa, especially in the winter time. It's the leopard track here. He's going off into this block. I don't know how fresh that is though. Well, let's do another loop around this block and we'll have a look-see. It looks pretty fresh to me. So Velma, a jersey, so many people come out here in winter time, which is a great time to come to South Africa, and they think it's hot here all the time. It isn't, it gets quite chilly. These are not old tracks, these. Going to turn around and do a loop around the other way. And countless sort of curio shops and gift stores at lodges make millions of rands throughout the year because people come out here without jerseys. So the second thing would be a jersey. I know you didn't say clothes, but you do need to bring one jersey. Then I would bring a camera if you can. I'm on Vuyatela Axis here. We just want to tell Jamie where I am. I'm on Vuyatela Axis heading towards Impala Plains, northwesterly direction. Not Impala Plains, sorry, Impala Road Junction, Sandy Patch. Okay, we're just going to get Kirsty to relay that through to Jamie. Now, we're a long way from where Jamie is. So if you're going to bring a camera, and a camera is a good idea, it depends on your bent, whether you want to take lots of very extensive range of high quality photographs. I would deter you from trying to do that because normally you'll be slightly disappointed unless you're very experienced in wildlife photography. But do not come on safari and get stuck behind your lens. So many people bring very expensive camera equipment with them, and they therefore spend the entire holiday staring at Africa through a viewfinder that big. Now that is a waste of time, and you can do that on TV. So just if you do bring a camera, make sure that you don't forget to just take pictures of the really special stuff and just keep looking around, because that's going to be the most wondrous thing for you. Right, so those are three things that you need to bring on safari. Then, I suppose, I would then, it depends on your interest, you know. I mean, I would certainly bring a field guide or two, but you probably get better ones out here than you will where you are. So a couple of field guides maybe, just some, depending on what you're interested in. And Kirsten had an idea. What was that, Kirsten? This leopard is now crossed across here. Right, she was, that's a female. Now we've got a female leopard heading across the road here. Oh, it's so frustrating, I don't know where to follow. I'm going to go along here. These female tracks are pretty good. Tebs, can you get those on camera then? There, you can see the female leopard tracks. Perfect. Perfectly lit there. So who this is, I don't know, given that Shadow, whose territory this falls in, is lurking down in Hoffman somewhere. So I don't know which female leopard this would be. Let's just follow along here. The male is likely to have moved further than the female. So let's just follow her. We don't have too much time left on drive. Oh, this is a very dainty little female that's walking on the road here. So we've got the hat, we've got the binoculars, we've got the camera. And, you know, that's basically all I would bring. Maybe a journal. I'd bring a journal. Clothes, of course, normal. You wear normal clothes out here. There's no need to go and buy matching safari outfits. There's nothing more amusing than watching a family of people who haven't done sufficient research into the area arriving at O.R. Tambo International Airport, which is one of the best international airports in the world, arrived in their car keys, trying to sort of disguise themselves, assuming that when they walk out of the airport, they're going to walk into the wild, which they aren't, of course. So you don't need to bring any kind of fancy clothes. You don't need to bring insect repellents and things like that. We'll sort you out with that sort of thing here. You get much better ones out here. Yeah, I'd say those are the top 3 things. I mean, maybe missing 1 or 2 things, but that's probably it. And then, Jen, I was about to say something similar, but not quite. You said an open mind, of course, should be the first thing that you bring on safari with you. Yes, Jen, an open mind is extremely important out here. And if you can, a little repository of knowledge. I would do, if you're going to come into a place like this, I would do quite a lot of reading before I came out, so that the basics you have an understanding of, so that you know the lay of the land and the geography, because it'll just help, and the history. It'll help you contextualize what you're going to learn and see out here so much better than if you just arrive and not have any idea as to what's going on. And I've made that mistake when I've traveled overseas, arriving at various places and not having sufficient knowledge in my head, and it just makes it more difficult to enjoy. Now, Tim, you say, don't you have to get lots of shots prior to going to Africa? Remember, again, Africa is a giant place. You don't need to get any shots to come to South Africa, as far as I'm aware. If you're going to the Congo, well, you'd need your head read if you're going to the Congo at this particular stage of its history. But then you would need some shots. Yes, you probably need a yellow fever shot and 1 or 2 others. If you're going to Rwanda, you might need yellow fever, I think. Tanzania maybe also, but no, there's not a great plethora of shots that you have to have. You'll find lots of travel clinics that will recommend you get all sorts of different shots, and they'll make a lot of money off you. But no, I have certainly, Tebs and I have not had any special shots. We live here, and that's not because we have particularly special immune systems at all. It's not a disease-riddled place. If you go to tropical Africa a bit more, so West Africa, like I say, the Congo, maybe Nigeria, that sort of thing, you might need a hepatitis shot and a yellow fever shot, maybe a tetanus shot. They'll tell you to get a tetanus shot, but the chances of you being savaged by a dog out here or standing on a rusty nail are about the same as they are for you at home. Keep them coming. These are great questions, and I think they're very important. Okay, so, and Shell, you're in Detroit, obviously you're worried about medical emergencies and that sort of thing. It's a very valid fear, of course, especially if you live in a place where, you know, medical care is on tap. And it is a fear out here in rural areas. What happens if you get bitten by a mamba? Chances of you being bitten by a mamba are very, 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 very small. But yes, they are possible. It is, well, I mean, it's a 0.0001% chance. Or if you have an injury, say you fall and you break something, how would we get you to the hospital? And there are airstrips around here, so if we could medivac you, if you had sort of a bone or spinal injury, we'd get a chopper or an aeroplane in here to take you out to Nelspruit, which would be the nearest hospital. It's probably a 40 or 50 minute chopper flight from here, and so that's pretty close by. You'll probably find that your medical attention would be delayed by, compared with what you'd get in the city, by no more than, I'd say, 20 minutes to half an hour, maybe 40 minutes. But certainly there are people on hand with medical training to stabilize any injury, and then, you know, would medevac you out in a chopper or a plane. There are policies and procedures in place to make that happen as fast as possible. Then if you were bitten by a mamba, I would throw you in a car as fast as possible and then drive you. Simply because we're about, driving really quickly, we're probably about an hour away from the nearest hospital, and we could probably drive you to a place where you could get, if you're bitten by a mammoth, it's a specific kind of case. You need to get onto life support as soon as possible. Your body will work the poison through if you can get onto life support, and so the trick would be to get you to the Hoedspruit Military Hospital as fast as possible so they can put you on a life support system. And the quickest way to do that would be to drive. Now, I haven't seen any further of these female leopard tracks. Other snake bites, though, would treat you on site and then probably fly you to a hospital. These are great questions because you just don't realize what people think about where we live. Matt Owick, you want to know what we eat for dinner? Well, Tebs and I eat mapani worms most evenings, don't we, Tebs? Tebs and I eat mapani worms, and then we follow that up sometimes with a bit of ziziphus leaves. And then for dessert, sometimes if we're really lucky, we'll have the creamy milk of a buffalo. It just depends on, whether we've been brave enough to milk one or not. Matt, I'm being completely facetious. Yes, we have steak here. We get our meat normally from Hoedspruit, which is the nearest settlement, nearest town, and they get it from kind of normal suppliers, the same kinds of suppliers where you'd buy your meat at home. So we have steak, we have chicken, we have pork. Lots of good veggies which are grown locally in the community outside. We buy veggies from a community garden project, which are excellent. They're fresh and very nice. So we eat pretty much what you would eat at home, bar the fast food, of course. We don't eat any fast food out here because we can't get it. Sometimes Brent Leo Smith will go into town and buy himself some fast food, but he, of course, cannot be considered part of the norm. Further leopard tracks here. Kevin Geyer, I disagree with you. You say I'd blow everyone away on Survivor. I'm actually not really much of a survival expert, to be honest. I've only lived out here, and it's not a fun. What? Leopard. Reverse. You're a genius. You're an absolute genius. Where?
Let me show you on camera.
I don't believe you. That is an unbelievable spot. Tebs. Well done. Chapizo Sanchez, the eyes, Seleke strikes again. This is not an easy spot. I'm not even ashamed for driving past this leopard female. And I don't think we've seen this one before, unless it's Karula. It is Karula. It's the old girl. Well spotted, Tebs. Gee whiz, that's brilliant. I'm going to give myself credit for spotting the tracks. Thereafter, no. Well done. So that's Karula, everybody, our 11-year-old Queen of Juma, fast approaching her 12th birthday. She's just having a gentle rest in the shade. I'm not sure if she's got a kill. I don't see anything in the tree above her. I don't see anything in the shade next to her. What a brilliant spot. Is she lovely? Let's call her in. The station's located. Female leopard animal is static to the south of the junction Gallagher shortcut in the fire break, about 100 meters to the south and west of that junction under a marula tree.
Nice, James. Any tracks for Madoli?
Did find tracks heading northwest. Actually, they split from this female's tracks northwest from Vuyatela Access Junction Gallagher shortcut. Sorry, Junction Aubrey's.
Alright, copy.
Thank you. The cameraman's going to take all the credit for this one. I didn't spot anything. Well done, Tebs. Absolutely. Thank you to all of you for your kind words about Tebs' spotting abilities. That's, as he said, 7 out of 7 leopards we found. He spotted all of them. Well done. What a great way to end our drive. Funky Man, very nice question, very valid question. Do we find any other leopards other than Karula and Shadow? We do. But, you know, we're sitting on, between Arathusa and us, we sit on 1,500 hectares or 4,000 acres, which means that there are at a maximum 3 female territories within that area. And so those are the 2 females we're going to see by far the most often. I was thinking this might be a different leopard because there is one whose territory that comes into this area from Buffels Hook, and I thought this might, when I saw her tracks, I thought it might be, but I'm 99% sure this is Karula from the Wow across her forehead.
Able.
And so, yes, female-wise, Shadow and Karula are going to provide by far the bulk of our viewing. We do sometimes see Kwatile to the south of us. When she comes north, we will sometimes see Shiluva, which is the female I was talking about earlier, who comes south from Buffels Hook, sometimes into this particular area. And we will sometimes see, I think there's another female called somebody was going to tell me exactly what she's called. She comes in from the northeastern side out of Buffels Hook. Nkanyeni, I think her name is. That's right. She looks like she's in pain. No, I think she looks fine. I think she looks very well. Yeah, no, I think she looks great. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to reverse a little bit back. We might get a slightly better view of her. I'm not going to get closer to her. As you know, that she has shown a little bit of dissatisfaction with some vehicles of late. To try and re-establish the trust, certainly that she had for us for many years. This is quite interesting. Tracks off the road here. It indicates to me that you may have been viewing her before. It's very interesting. I'm going to park here and get a better view of her here. I'm not going to try and get any closer. Oh, there she goes. Oh, she's lovely. Unfortunately, she's just going north, straight towards the boundary. Let's see what she does.
On my way back, I'll go along Wahlberg cut line again.
Tail up, you can't see that now. She's just trying to kind of avoid attracting the attention of the birds. And listen, I have to say I agree. I know exactly what you mean. You said at first you thought she was a cheetah because of her head spots. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It was one of my reactions, and then I realized that I was thinking nonsense. She's gone. sound asleep there. Let me sneak in here. Oh, she's moving again. Oh, she's going to come out on the cover. She's just through there. So we stop here and let her come out in front of us. See her, Tebs? Yeah. Of course you can see her. You can see a leopard at 700 paces. Come on, Karula. So we sneak forward. No, here she comes. Hello, Lee. You say she's not hungry. Well, she's a leopard, so she will always eat if she can. Is she desperate for food? No, I wouldn't say so. Her stomach looks pretty well fed. Isn't that lovely? Broad daylight, magnificent cat. Oh, perfect. So she is unfortunately crossing north into Bushwalk. Hello, Sand Blaster. You're a new viewer. Wonderful to have you with us, and thank you for getting hold of us. You want to know about big cat families and how far they travel from each other, and do they stay in audio contact? Big cats don't have families, Sand Blaster. She is related to Shadow, who's the female to the west of her territory. In that Shadow is her daughter. They don't stay in audio contact. They stay in kind of olfactory contact, I suppose. So they mark their territories with urine, and that kind of separates them. But they don't stay in any other kind of contact. The only big cat that lives in a social sort of arrangement is the leopard, of course, and the lion, and they stay in visual contact with each other all the time. But they are totally solitary, these leopards. They can remain oblivious of other cats in the area. They will. The vaguely social cat would be considered male cheetah. Here's a magnificent old girl. She's now heading into Bushwalk. She's lifted her tail up there, you can see, because the birds are alarm calling at her. Just looking at Tebs there. Tebs, you've got the evil eye from a few animals today, haven't you? There she goes. Oh, she stopped just behind the car. And there she goes into Bushwalk, unfortunately. And that, everybody, is the end of that. We can't go in there. Try and hunt in there. She seems to have spotted something, but I suspect she'll sleep for much of the day. Off she goes. What a spectacular day we have had. Beautiful elephants. Beautiful leopard, wonderful hyenas to start off the morning, excellent light from the cloud cover, which will hopefully stay. I doubt it, but maybe it will. So a big thank you to all of you for your questions and comments. Lovely stuff that we chatted about, people thinking about coming on safari. And I think that's something we should talk about again. If anybody is thinking about coming out here, is nervous perhaps of difficulties out here, let us know what you might be scared of. Thank you, Tebs. Brilliant job on the elephants and the leopard, of course. Big thanks to Jamie on foot with Wium, and to Kirsty and Jerry in the final control. We are going to see you later at about 4 o'clock this afternoon. Till then, bye-bye.